Driss Ghali, welcome to Thinking Class. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Driss, as I was explaining just before we got recording, in the space of a couple of weeks, I was inundated with some of your writings. First, your book, A Counter History of French Colonisation, and then a friend of mine who was published in the Salisbury Review said, I've been published in the Salisbury Review this month. Here's a physical copy. And your name was there, and I thought, right, I knew I was going to want to speak to Driss on this show. Now I definitely have to, because he keeps on writing very interesting things. And so we're going to get into that topic of French colonization and your counter history of it. And in the opener of that book, you say that aspiring to be an honest man is a good thing because you get to the bottom of things on your own terms and you're not seeking to strike a pose or make noise. So in that spirit, we'll go on and be honest men together. Let's begin, not with the counter history of French colonization, but perhaps the conventional view. So how would you describe the conventional view of French colonization and its impact on the countries it colonized?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I do apologize. My English is rusty because I write in French, and I live in Brazil, so I have a few opportunities to speak English, but I'm trying. I'll do my best.
It sounds good to me, Driss. Better than my French.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You are very nice with me. What is the conventional view of French colonization? It is a hold-up, an act of piracy made by France against the Third World, mainly Africa and the Arab world. In the public opinion, France is the bad guy, and all the Arab countries it colonized, the African countries it colonized, were the nice guys, the victims, and the public opinion, the general public, make a confusion, a bundle between with slavery and colonization, and it amounts to a kind of Holocaust of blacks and Arabs in the eyes of the public opinion. And it is no accident because the French Ministry of Education, the French media, the establishment, all are feeding this narrative of France being a rich country thanks to Africa, thanks to the Arab world. France being a world power thanks to colonization. France being a genocidal country. Recently, it will be my last sentence maybe, a prominent reporter in France called Jean-Michel Apathy said that France, in these terms, he said that France behaved like Nazis in Algeria, which is very strong. So put yourself in the skin of a young Frenchman of 18 years old. He says, okay, my grandparents were Nazis.
You're of Moroccan heritage. Indeed, you're recording from Morocco right now. What motivated you as a Moroccan to put a case forward for a counter history, which we'll get on to what that looks like at the moment? What was your motivation?
Twofold. First of all, my grandfather was a colonial soldier. He fought with France during World War II. He was a prisoner of war in Germany for 4 years. He was captured early in the war in Belgium in July 1940. And so I admired this gentleman, and I was sure he was not a traitor. He was not because he was collaborating. He was working for France, the occupying force of Morocco, and I knew his character. So I knew that he had a good motive to do that, to fight with France, and so I tried. It was a very personal approach, by trying to rehabilitate him, or rehabilitate the memory of these colonial soldiers who fought with France for a good reason. And this reason is at the heart of this book. These guys were not crazy, they were not traitors. They fought with the country, the power that gave to their homeland some stability, some security, and some perspective in the horizon. Because the Arab world Africa were doomed land, full of wretchedness, full of misery, and France, despite all its shortfalls and faults and crimes, because there were colonial crimes, France gave a structure. They gave them a reason to. They gave them some hope. The second motive, very important for me, why I wrote this book, is because in today's France there is a rift between immigrants and historical white Frenchmen, and one of the main driver of this rift is the peculiar narrative about colonization fed by the left, fed by the establishment, and that says that France is a genocidal country and that all Frenchmen are guilty. And I am trying to say to give a nuanced approach to colonization and to diffuse this bomb, because in France now is sitting over a boiling pot.
The boiling pot that you're talking about here, I have interviewed, he's a fellow Englishman on this podcast. He spends 6 months of the year in France, and here in Britain, we often talk about how our civilization is under threat. Our cohesion as a society is coming apart because of various factors, whether it be financial problems, whether it be the really high rate of immigration. And anyway, we are often interested in some ways as to how we fare in comparison to our French cousins across the water. And I asked him, what does civilization look like in France? Who's doing better, France or Britain? And he said, France is a funny place insofar as the cities feel like you're living under some kind of informal apartheid system, because everyone lives in their ethnic conclaves. There is no respect for the law, and in many respects, an aggression toward it. However, you can, because the country is so much larger than England and Britain, you can escape it, and it feels like it's not coming apart at the seams when you get out into the country. So I suppose thinking about that boiling pot and the and perhaps the division that's boiling up between an immigrant population and the French, the native French population. How do people who are from a similar background to you, a heritage to you, responds to someone like you trying to make a different case that actually the French aren't Nazis and they weren't genocidal?
I think that there is unfortunately, there is lots of indifference. I think that ignorance is the culture of today. The pop culture of today in France, maybe in Europe also, in the world, is ignorance. People are not interested in anything besides emotions, football, hatred, maybe porn. I don't know, but the people are not really willing to go in depth. Maybe I'm wrong. So, but the few people that are interested in what I say, they're usually receptive. I'm surprised by good reception among Arabs in France, among Arabs, Muslims in France, black people in France, because those who have opened their eyes are really aware of the boiling pot, of the dangers, and that they're also aware that the countries of the South are not heaven. They are in deep crisis, and that if France fails, if France disappears, if France disaggregates, there will be no refuge. But I'm aware I'm talking to a minority. The vast majority is not really interested in debate. It is, and I try to understand why, because life is hard, and also the people are they are plagued by, I call it malaise identitaire, a problem in their identity. They don't feel good because of their identity, because of being of foreign origin. They live in a different culture. They're coming from a strong culture, Arab or African. They have their own trouble to deal with, and sometimes when you suffer, you don't try to be bright. You go for the easy path. So you say that France is the guilty one here. You put it on the Jews, on the American, or whatever, and I understand. Actually, I think that I would, but at least I try to be useful, giving a counter narrative to the prophets of hatred from the left or even from the establishment. Even Mr. Macron, the president, the French president, says that that colonization was a crime against humanity. So I try to give a counter argument, and to the people of good faith. One day they will unite. Today we are scattered, but one day we will unite when the boiling pot will explode.
Well, and maybe we'll get on to the boiling pot later, and how and what we think the future might hold now that the pot is beyond simmering, it's boiling. So you have written the counter history of French colonization. So as a whistle-stop tour for people, which I'm sure everyone fully understands, European powers, France included, colonized parts of the world, the parts of the world that the French colonized. As all the other European powers were retreating post-Second World War, the French also did. And you're making the argument that since the French retreated, that things have changed, and now actually the French are being colonized. There is a kind of reverse imperialism. There are some people who I don't think would agree that's the case. Indeed, one of your stable mates in your publisher, Vauban Books, Renaud Camus, he recently gave an interview to Freddie Sayers at Unheard, and they disagreed quite vehemently. Renaud Camus making the point that Britain, because we were talking in the British context, was being colonized because of mass immigration, and Freddie said, I don't believe that's what it is. So why don't you make the case as to why you think France has been colonized, and what examples we see of that?
Yeah. First of all, colonization was a very short moment in the history of the Third World. Especially, for example, in Morocco, it was a business of 44 years. In sub-Saharan Africa, 50 years, which is nothing in the long chronological scale. Second, it did not stop in 1960 or 62 with decolonizations. The French remained in most countries in what they called collaboration, cooperation, whatever, and it was a very interesting experience of collaboration between equals. Even here in Morocco, my mom went to high school and she was lectured by French teachers working for the Moroccan government, and it was fantastic because they were talking to equals after independence. It lasted to the mid-70s. This is beautiful collaboration, and this is the fruit of colonization. The good aftermath, I would say. What happened is that things went crazy after the 80s with mass migration because of the collapse of the independent countries, the economical collapse, sometimes political. But let's say at least economical collapse of socialism, of whatever system, even liberalism, and this collapse did free millions of workers who went to France seeking prosperity, and from Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, sub-Saharan Africa, and other countries. This built strong diasporas that now are proto-peoples, micro-peoples in the making. You have a little Morocco in France, more than 1.5 million Moroccan in France, in my point of view. You have a little Algeria in France, over 6 million to 7 million Algerians in France, which is astonishing. You have 500,000 Malian from Mali, and so on. To give you two figures, to a basis for comparison, there were only 1 million Frenchmen in Algeria in colonization. At the apex, at the maximum of the French presence in Algeria, let's say early 1960, 1 million Frenchmen in Algeria. Today you have 5, 6, 7 million Algerians in France. The amount of people of extra-European origin in France is around 20% of the population. In Morocco, at the height of colonization, the maximal impact of French presence, the rate of Frenchmen in Morocco was around 5%. So 5% to 20%. Tell me which country is more exposed to foreign presence. In Cameroon, at the height of colonization, I mean in 1945, there were only 5,000 white people in Cameroon, running Cameroon. I've just told you that you have more than 500,000 Malian in France. So I think that this is interesting to understand the demographic impact of the presence of the former colonies in France. And I'm not talking about the demographic, the growth rate, which is also higher than the growth rate of the historical French population, for several factors. One of them is the scarcity of abortion among the Muslims, among other cultural aspects. Some people in the West don't want to understand it as colonization because they are looking for occupying troops and soldiers and flags. Okay, you don't have an Algerian flag in France. Maybe if you look, you can. If you look carefully, you will find some. But I mean, you don't need a formal military invasion to become a colony. Sometimes colonization starts with settlement. The power transfer, sovereignty transfer, is secondary. It can be a protracted process. We saw it in Indochina. Saigon, for the general public, is a city of Vietnam, but originally it's a city of Cambodia. It's Khmer, and it was settled during 2 to 3 centuries by Vietnamese, and then they took the power. So we have to open our minds and revise our concept of colonization. We are not living the colonization of our fathers with naval marine troops, first seizing the king, the palace of the sultan or the king, and then opening the road for European settler. It's the other way around. And we are already opening the transfer of power. You have in France more than 700 lawless zones, according to the confession of the Ministry of the Interior. So in reality, maybe it's over 1,000 zones that I call of co-sovereignty, where France is finding the allowances, the social benefits, they're paying for, they're painting the buildings and paying for and funding the school buses, but the power, the control of the population is among ethnic gangs. The Ministry of Interior called them zones urbaines sensibles. I love the bureaucratic language. Areas, sensitive urban areas.
Yeah.
Wonderful wording. I love it. These are areas of co-sovereignty. These are the manifestation of colonization. You will not have an invasion by Morocco or France or by Senegal. You will have something else. something else in the next 5-10 years. Of course, I'm sure that Morocco or even Algeria will help France manage the civil war ahead by diplomatic or police consultancy. But something else is coming, the awakening of a new people in France. And these new people will say, look, I'm not French. I'm from Africa. I'm Muslim. And I want this and I don't want that. This is the new colonization. And it will be as harsh and as traumatic as the colonization that my grandfathers lived in Morocco, experienced in Morocco. Because colonization needs inequality. And you see inequality on the tube, in the underground of Paris or Lyon. You see ethnic gangs beating white victims. Of course, I'm exaggerating. You have victims also among the migrant populations. I must say that also, but there is something very colonial in this, because in Morocco, in Senegal, in Congo, during colonization, there was we call it in France carte blanche. The colonists, the settlers, had carte blanche. They had the certainty of impunity if they hit or assault locals. And what our legal system guarantees in France for settlers is a kind of impunity. They are minors. They don't understand the culture. We believe in their reinsertion. We believe that we can pardon them. And you have a situation where the natives are afraid of the foreigners. This is colonial. No doubt about that. But it's a new kind of colonization. Fascinating for sure.
Grimly fascinating. As you were talking there, and you're talking about it being a new kind of colonization, it brought up that quote of the Algerian president Houari Boumediene in 1974 to a UN conference, where he said to all of the delegates, fellow leaders of the world, one day, millions of men will leave the southern hemisphere to go to the northern hemisphere, and they will not go there as friends, because they will go there to conquer it, and they will conquer it with their sons. The wombs of our women will give us victory. And I find it interesting that when we are talking a lot about the demographic and fertility crisis that Western nations are typically facing, and people will start to give projections about when there will be a potentially a minority majority. So it might be native French or native British, white French, white British, that are, say, 49% of the population. Is people say it as just something to remark about, oh, that'll be something that's changed, but they don't necessarily project into the future what that might mean for the politics, for the culture, and nor does anyone ask any searching questions about what might be in the hearts and minds of those arriving, which, by the way, I'm not suggesting everyone is Houari Boumediene, but as you were talking about the number of Algerians in France, which was 6 to 7 million people, I mean, that's 10% of the population. That is huge. And if even a fraction of those people have similar sentiments to what Boumediene is outlined in his speech all those years ago, 51 years ago, then you would expect that people might be a little bit concerned about that in the political class. What would you say? And I know you're not a clairvoyant, you don't know what's in people's hearts and minds, but what would you say the sentiment is towards the white French amongst the descendants of immigrants that are in France? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it more or less than those things?
Okay, just a detail. The number of Algerians in France is a polemical topic, because we have several sources, several statistics. The 6 to 7 millions is the estimate of the president of Algeria, Mr. Tebboune.
Got you, yeah.
Yeah. The Algerian consulates, they say they have, I don't remember now, but more than 2.5 million Algerians registered in the consulate, which is still a big amount. The French government says that we have 1 million Algerians with titre de séjour, with residence permit. But this number, it does not encompass the people with the binationals. So the truth is somewhere between 2.5 million and 6 million, which is still huge in comparison to the 1 million figure I gave you of the French settlers in Algeria at the height of colonization. To answer your question, how does the sons of the migrants consider the French people? I think that surprisingly, there is a lot of camaraderie and a lot of comprehension and a lot of friendship in the day-to-day, in the day at school, at the bureau, and in the office. The situation is not that grim. But the two bells are ringing, two alarm signals. One is that there is no common project. The people are, they do agree about consumption, football, PSG maybe, Olympique de Marseille. There is no project that could federate France. The black people, the white, the Arabs. The European project is dead. I mean, it's not shining anymore in the heart of the people. You won't convince a guy from African origin in France to dream about Brussels or Europe or Ukraine. Okay, of course he can feel empathy for Ukraine. He can use Schengen. He's using the euro already, but he's more inclined to dream about Beyoncé and Obama than Ursula von der Leyen. So there is a problem of common project. How do you federate? How do you make these people work together? Between brackets, maybe a war, an external war, overseas war, may bond these people, like my grandfather bonded spontaneously with French Catholics fighting Nazism. It's half a joke, but you can, where you don't have racial brotherhood, you can create brotherhood through war, through the experience of danger, common danger, or common success. You can also think about that. The second alarm I see is that minorities, you spoke about minorities and majorities, minorities, active minorities are disseminating hatred among the migrants and telling them that the French people are despicable because they don't practice their religion, because they are no more Catholics, because they're atheists, because they're colonists, etc., because they are gay or whatever. And the politics are made by minorities. Minorities always prevail if they are determined, if they are radical. The extremists have always the last word. And colonization in Africa, in North Africa, was the business of minorities. A minority of white people, of white men, ruled Morocco during 44 years, ruled Algeria during 130 years. So I'm afraid of these minorities. They are Islamic, they are maybe criminal, and they do the job that the French political establishment is not doing. They don't talk to the migrants because they're afraid of being called out racist. And they are also ignorant because the more Muslim you have in France, the less the political personnel elites are aware of what is Islam. They think that Muslims or that Arabs are white people that are browner or Catholics that speak Arab. No, we are different. And because we are different, we need to find a new way to live together and to avoid civil war. But these people are so ignorant, are so afraid of being called out racist, that they try to treat someone called Mohammed like someone called Jean-Pierre. But the identity is different.
Well, you brought up religion, and I think it's only right that we get into that in a little bit more detail. I think an interesting place to start is that you yourself are a Muslim from an Islamic country, and yet you have written about the stark differences between those who live in cultures derived from Christianity and those derived from Islam. And you said that one cannot conflate with Catholicism with Islam, because Catholicism is about making a better man, whereas Islam is about making kings and lawmakers, and that Islam doesn't condemn greed or malice, but rather requires it to survive. And you've made some really interesting points, like often these have come out from desert nomadic life, where there's a totally different moral code, which would run counter to Christian virtues, etc. So thinking about that, thinking about what the future holds, you've mentioned civil war a few times, which I know hit the news a few years ago, when a few retired generals in France and some serving wrote a letter warning the Republic that civil war is coming, and for many of the reasons you've described. So I suppose if we think there is, if we're saying there's a big difference between those who live by an Islamic moral code and those who live by a Catholic or a Republican moral code, what does that actually mean for French society? How could those societies live together if they have a different view of the world?
It's merely impossible to live together peacefully, unless one is intronized as dominant. You can't have a model and a counter model living at the same place under equal rules. One has to be considered the dominant, and that's the danger, major danger, because for the moment the dominant model is the Western one in France. They call it the Republican model. We can talk about that. La République. Bon. The issue with the Western model is the Republic. The French model is that it's seen as weak. When you see that criminals, sometimes from from foreign origin, are bombing police stations, and nothing happens. You understand that the Western model is perceived as weak, so nobody will rally behind a weak model. Nobody will support a football team that is doomed to lose. You will support FC Barcelona or Real Madrid or whatever, or Arsenal. I don't understand football, but you got my point. So what could happen is in the future, whether a civil war, of course, or a partition of the country between pockets, territorial pockets, with one system, Muslim one, French one, whatever. But you can also have a new political system where you have a kind of co-sovereignty between an imported civilization, roughly Islamic, but not only Islamic. She's also African, black, and the historical one. But I mean, I just want to make a slight nuance. There is we all see the iceberg called Islam in Europe. Okay, but there is a part of the iceberg that we do not have in sight, that is hidden. That is the formidable difference of mentalities between the Europe and the Arab world and Africa. And it has nothing to do with religion. I'm talking about the tribal mentality, the mindset of the tribes, the clanic perspective of life, the relationship between with the state. We in North Africa, we don't love the state. The French people, they love the state. They're in love with l'État, because historically has been the partner of the French people. Think about public schools, free health services, etc., etc. In North Africa, the state is not our partner. Historically, he was our rival. He was taxing us. He was stealing our crops. So you transfer people from North Africa, from Black Africa to France, and you ask them to love the state. They don't love the state. They are hostile to the state. They need time, maybe several centuries or several decades to adapt to that. And it has nothing to do with Islam. And I complain a bit about that with my friends from the right, the Nationalist Party in France. I tell them, okay, Islam is an issue, but it's not the only issue. You have a set of other issue. There is no equality, for example, in Africa, in North Africa. We don't understand equality. So the future of France can be a society of ultra inequalities, where you have Neymar, Messi, whoever, with their billions of euros, and you have masses of poor people. For us, it's normal. We come from cultures without a middle class. And you perceived for sure the coincidence. I'm not saying the causality, but the coincidence between the rise in in migration and the rise in inequalities. Because there is something there. The people of the South are not. They do tolerate a society with no middle class. So the future of France is not must be understood not only from the religious prism. We have to look at the other aspects that are as frightening as the clash of religions.
I'm not sure the book has been released in French. Perhaps you might have read it in English, but there's an economist who teaches over in Washington, DC, called Garrett Jones, and he wrote a book called The Culture Transplant. Why immigrants make societies more like the ones they leave. And specifically, he talks about the economics of it, and shows that actually if you follow groups of people based on their country and origin over a matter of generations and indeed centuries, and he maps it back to about 500 years ago, as you can see that the places that were rich then are still rich now, and all the ones that were poor then are still poor now, and that anywhere that you find large groups of those from typically poor regions that are now part of rich countries, you find that the economics of the rich countries start to change in a similar direction. But of course, it's not just about economics. It's all of the other things, right? Like you can see a change in the hot topics of the politicians of the day as they start to change in the direction of the concerns of the new population, or the recently arrived population.
Right.
Yeah. So. I think this is a conversation that takes place in Britain. You were talking about mindset then, how people struggle to understand the mindset, or indeed, are you suggesting that no one actually tries to understand the mindset, but rather sees everything as though the world is naturally set to being this universalist liberal worldview, and if only we allowed someone into the country, then they will very quickly make something of themselves and be that they're kind of just like us. They just weren't given the opportunity. Do you think that's how you would describe your political class in France?
Right. Yeah. There is a big bunch of ingenuity. People are naive. They think that. They think that the Arab or the African is another European with different skin, different religion. and they don't understand that the European of today is the result of a long evolution of a civilizatory process that was very deep, maybe unique in the world, comparable to what happened in China or Japan, where human nature was deconstructed and reconstructed. The European is abiding the law spontaneously. You don't need to meet a policeman at each corner to stop at the red light. In some countries, you still need an ostensible police force to have people behave, and this is a prowess made by the European civilization, thanks to the religion, the state, the family, feudalism. Okay, it's a multifactorial process, and so these people, the people that are ruling us, are not aware of that. And the second factor is that they, as you said, they come from elitist ignorance. They have a high degree of ignorance. So they only believe, they only know, they have only access to homo economicus, as you said. Liberal world, Islam will dilute in economy, in Europe. There is no race. The color of the skin is not important. People will join the same trend of consumption. They will all become Amazon customers, and all the problem will be solved. And you are right in this point. And the other element, the final element, in my point of view, is a kind of inverted racism. Rousseau in the 18th century said, he called it le mythe du bon sauvage, the myth of the good salvage. You know, the good.
Yes.
And he said, we white people, we created civilization, and we are corrupt by civilization. And the guy that lives in its tribe is purer than we are, because he's close to nature, and so on and so on. And I feel the same twisted logic when I hear the left in France. They decided that the migrant is the bon sauvage, so he's right. Anything he does, he's right, and we are the sinners. It's a kind of inverted Catholicism also. We ate the la pomme,
the apple.
How do you say it in English? The apple, and they did not. So we are the sinners, and it's kind of racism, you know, because are they kids and we are adults? And you feel that, you know, there is something of moral superiority. In the riverbed of the mindset of our elites. We are the humanists. We are the progressists. They are the racists, because we recognized in the Arab, in the black, and when I say Arab, I should say the Moroccan, the Algerian, the Egyptian, because there is a diversity of stories. Each one of us is a result of a sedimentation. The man from Ivory Coast is different from the man from Botswana, and that's fantastic. It has its qualities and its shortfalls, his splendor and his miseries, and we must love that, and we recognize that, and we want to preserve it. But our elites, they believe in a homo economicus, in a generic man, called the generic man, a white paper. We are not white papers. Thanks God, we are not white papers.
Yes, the blank slate, we call it, actually, and it is something.
Blank sheet, yeah, and
it is. It seems to be rife in all of our policy making and our view of the world.
And we want to. Sorry to interrupt you. We are bound to continue the story started by our ancestors. and it's not democratic. It's kind of life identity is not democratic. I am bound by my identity, by my DNA, by my subconscious, by my superego, by my collective superego, to at least hear the voice of my ancestors, not obey them, but at least hearing them. Would you like it or not? This is the way it works. And it's the same for Scotch, French, Spanish, and when people they try to continue this story. Let's say an example. Let's take an example. When a French woman from Arab origin used the veil, they don't understand. Say, "Oh, this is an accident." No, she's trying to continue a story. Is she right or not? We can discuss, but we should not be astonished. It's normal. It's normal that people do not forget their origins. We cannot negotiate much with the origins. I'm not saying we must capitulate to tradition, but our life is meant to be a kind of arrangement with our identity. I was born a man. I can't become a woman. I'm sorry to say, to commit a sin here, but I can tune in my virility. Okay, I can be more feminine, yin yang. I can play on that, but I cannot castrate myself. The same applies for identity in the religious, ethnic perspective, and the people who run us are completely unable to hear that. And when problems appears, they blame the extreme right, which is very easy. And they say it's there are tensions because of Eric Zemmour in France, or because of Trump in the USA, or because of Putin. Because the media said that. Yeah,
that sounds like a common
familiar.
Yeah, it sounds like a common experience here as well. It's the dismissing people who notice something and say, actually, no, it's simply about this. And if people would stop noticing, then maybe this would go away. But as you have made the case today, Driss, things don't go away. They just keep going the direction they're going unless someone stands in the way of them. So before I ask the question, which I ask all of my guests, I've got one more for you, which is what were to happen if certain circumstances change? So you've made the strong case that there's an experience of reverse colonization taking place in France, although we could make the case more widely in other countries, I'm sure. And because of that, or because of the nature of our political elites, natives are unable to freely express themselves in the mainstream about their concerns. And so they've got to seek out alternative spaces to do so, whether it's new media or talking among friends. What do you think would happen in French society if the Overton window of acceptable discourse changed and there was no longer a taboo on speaking openly about the problems that the white French see? What do you think would happen?
Just in a few seconds, the reverse colonization happens also in the USA with the Mexicans and Latino. It's fascinating. The way the Latin civilization is taking over Texas, California, even New York, pacifically, splendidly sometimes, with Eva Longoria, who can blame her for colonizing Florida, but also tragically with the gangs, Cartel de Sinaloa, the Venezuelan gangs, Tren de Aragua, and that the Trump administration is now trying to fight. And they are hard. So this is not a monopoly in Europe. This reverse colonization the USA is also going through it. They are maybe more luckier than Europe. They don't have the Islamic question. It's a colonization among Christians, which makes it probably easier to assimilate or to deal with. I think. Now, back to your question, if the French people were allowed to express themselves, I think that roughly half of them will join us in this assessment of the situation. The other half will accept colonization. I think maybe half, 40%, 45%, I don't know. Part of the French people is willing to die, to disappear, to become European. I mean, a slave of Brussels or something like that, citizen of the world. Or to become something else, because their subconscious is looking for authority. And Islam is an authority. After 50 years of deconstruction, of nihilism, of saying that everything is possible, allowed, maybe some, and I see it in some people that are converting to Islam in France, maybe they are looking for a new, people are looking for certainty. And Islam gives certainties. By the way, Islam is in crisis. We don't have time to talk about it, but Islam is in deep crisis. But so I'm sure a tiny majority of French people will elect nationalist parties. These nationalist parties, mainly, le Rassemblement National, will get the power, but it will be too late, because you have already a multi-racial, multi-confessional country with millions of binationals whose allegiance is unknown. Are they loyal to Morocco, to Algeria, to France, to Côte d'Ivoire? We will see. We will see on the spot. And Marine Le Pen will not be able to execute its strategy, because with millions of Muslims in France, and with millions of binationals, you cannot say, for example, let's take an example. We will stop. We will prevent binationals from getting married overseas. Let's take a very specific measure, the decision. It's politically very difficult to implement, because we're talking of millions of citizens. I think it's necessary to stop this way of migration. But when you have 10 millions of Muslims in France, are you still able to say you want building mosques? I don't want to build mosques. I think, on the contrary, we need to build mosques, but controlled by the French government, because there is a religion. So I think that now it's too late for classical right wing, and we must invent a new republic, a new system of government that can accommodate diversity, that can give a preference, a privilege for the people that are really living the French way, because millions of migrants are willing to assimilate. We must give them a privilege. We must give them a reward. The others, those who don't want to assimilate, they want to use the veil. They think that Sharia is better than our laws. Okay, you're still there, if you have your residence permit, but for example, they won't be able to vote, for example, or to get elected. And I don't care if they are French citizens. If you don't follow the civilizational playbook, if you don't play by the civilizational rules, I feel you're a different kind of citizen. This is, of course, not democratic. But I think we should explore, France should explore this new paradigm, because the old republic built on equality will explode with this melting pot of people, with millions of Muslims manifesting, voicing their demands, the veil, whatever, the Ramadan. You know, France in Ramadan is a mess, because in the companies, at the office, you have people that ask to leave at early, people that don't want to go to meetings, that don't want to shake hands with women. It's unmanageable. It's crazy. So I think that we are going to a kind of society of like in Hong Kong, China, Hong Kong, one country, two systems. I call it an empire, and we are circling back and coming back to colonization. What was an empire? It was a country with different status for the people, given their religion. So I think that we are. It's our fate collectively. If there is salvation, is to build a new France with the pieces gathered from all over the world, with the historical French identity, try to make a country that is still capable of functioning and of delivering power. Because we never speak about power. Why are we doing that? Why are we paying taxes? To be powerful. Because there is Putin, there is China, there is Trump, there is whatever, Erdogan, there is Elon Musk. We need to be able to deliver power, excellence, economical, military power. And I'm sure we cannot deliver power in a country where you have such diversity governed by equality. It will be a kind of a championship of whining minorities. Of course, if you are if the money flow is abundant, you can fund it, but the money flow it will be interrupted. France has over 3,000 billion euros debt. So one day we'll have to pay that. We'll have to stop the party. So to answer, I'm sorry, my answer is very long, but I think it's too late. Even if the Overton windows move, even if the Marine Le Pen is elected, I think it's too late. I think that we will go through a revolutionary process with a complete reset of the way France is governed. I won't say the same about England or Spain. I'm not well acquainted with these two countries, but I'm sure about what I'm saying about France. There is no turning point now. You have to make. You have to. As Lyoté said it. Lyoté was the governor of the colonial governor, the first one in Morocco. He said, Hubert Lyoté. He said, talking about France in the early 20th century. Imagine. Let's think about today. He said the challenge of France is to rebuild France with people living in it. It's very difficult to rebuild a house with its inhabitants in it, because it's very dangerous. And that is exactly the challenge now. We have to rebuild France with millions of people living in it, so it will be difficult. Tears will be involved, but I think it's the challenge.
Well, it certainly sounds like a challenge, the challenge of everyone's lifetimes, and the ones after that.
A mission, maybe.
If someone is willing to actually take it on. Driss, this has been absolutely fascinating. And just before I let you go, the one question I ask all of my guests is, what have you changed your mind on during the course of your life that you once thought was an absolute, it was something you wouldn't change your mind on? And what was it that made you think differently when you stopped thinking that?
On any venue of life?
Anything.
I think that look, I went through a very severe depression when mental breakdown that lasted 10 years, and it made me change my mind on on everything, especially on the fact that life is rational, that there is a logic in life, that 2 + 2 = 4. Among humans, 2 + 2 does not equal 4. It's something else. I mean that there is always hope, and nothing is really linear. Nothing is really linear. Nothing is really decided forever. Nothing is really permanent in life. Beside that, of course, there is always a hope or another ending is possible. I'm not sure it's a happy ending, but the options are not limited in life. Sometimes you can say, it's over, I'm finished. No, you're still breathing. Maybe something will happen, and this is valid also for countries, as we just said. Tragedy is not certain, but we just need to be more agile. I learned to become more agile, less French, because one of the illness of the French mind is this over-reliance on logic, on the ideas. There's something called the energy in the world, and the energy is there, and it is like the wave that saves a surfer. You know, a wave can come from anywhere and transport you to the shore and save your life. So my only advice, modestly, is never forget the wave. Something can push you, and of course be available. Don't spit on the wave, and don't call it conspiracy theory or no. Just welcome the invisible hand of God.
Driss, that was a very hopeful answer to finish on, and thank you for sharing something so personal. There's absolutely no obligation for you to do that, but that went off in a direction I wasn't expecting, and I hope that has the impact on the listeners as it did on me as I was listening to it. Driss, you've been extraordinarily generous with your time, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure a lot of the listeners and viewers have as well. I would recommend that everyone gets out and reads, buys your book, A Counter History of French Colonisation. What else can anyone expect from you? Are you working on anything, and where can they find you online?
Thank you. They can find me on Twitter easily. They can also find me on my website, drissgali.com. I am not working on anything. I am dealing with real life these days, and it gives me lots of material about the craziness of people and the agility required from us to deal with it. I'm sure I will find my next topic in these few coming days.
Well, I know we will be all the better for it once you do find that topic and you start putting other things out there. But seriously, it's been an absolute pleasure. Keep fighting the good fight, and I hope we get to speak again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Driss. To keep up to date with all that I am doing, please subscribe to the Thinking Class YouTube channel at Thinking Class and follow me on X at Thinking Classes. Thinking Class seeks to understand the civilizational issues we face and why what our leaders do in response matters. Here, I seek to explore the ideas, values, and culture that made our civilization, those that are unmaking it, and how leaders at our public and private institutions should respond. Engage with me on YouTube or X, or write to me at thinkingclasspod@gmail.com to tell me who you want me to speak to and what topics are important to you. I look forward to seeing you there and for joining me on this journey.